Welcome back to another explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're here today because we're tackling what might just be the single most profound debate in all of human history. We are looking at the epic, centuries-old clash between science, philosophy, and religion over the ultimate origins of the universe. Today, we're going to unpack the brilliant and honestly sometimes highly controversial arguments of the 18th century Scottish philosopher David Hume, and then we'll see how modern scientific discoveries completely changed the playing field.
So, let's just dive right into it. The massive question that has literally stumped humanity for millennia: where did everything come from? It's a question that naturally leads us to look for causes and designers. When we look around at the incredible complexity of the world, it's just human nature to wonder if an ultimate intelligence put it all together, or if there's another explanation entirely.
Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We're tracking a fascinating timeline of thought, starting with the ultimate cosmic debate, the fallacy of composition. Science enters the chat. Was the debate rigged? And finally, science versus philosophy. Let's get started.
Section 1. The Ultimate Cosmic Debate, a theatrical clash of ideas.
Back in 1779, David Hume wrote a book called Dialogues Concerning Natural Religion. But instead of writing a dry, boring essay, he actually framed his critique as a literal back-and-forth dialogue. Let's put his two intellectual gladiators in the ring to see how they view the universe. On one side, we've got Cleanthes. He's defending the teleological argument, or the argument from design. Cleanthes basically says every aspect of the natural world, like the brilliant construction of the human eye, fits together perfectly, like a machine. He uses a famous analogy. If a house appears well-designed, we know it has a builder. Therefore, the universe must have a grand designer. But then, on the other side, we have Philo, the skeptic, who actually represents Hume's own personal views. Philo fires back, arguing that this whole analogy is deeply flawed. He says we simply cannot compare our experience of a house with our experience of the universe, mostly because, well, we just don't know enough about the universe to make that kind of massive judgment.
Section 2. The Fallacy of Composition. Dismantling the cosmological argument.
Okay, so how exactly does Philo try to dismantle his opponent's logic? Well, he targets a logical trap called the fallacy of composition to strike a major empirical blow against the cosmological argument. The cosmological argument claims that because everything in the universe has a cause, the universe itself must have a cause. But the fallacy of composition is the logical error of confusing the properties of a whole with the properties of its parts. Our source material gives a great, simple example. Just because every pupil in a college is a good student, it doesn't automatically mean the college as a whole is a good college. Make sense? Hume argues that the cosmological argument falls right into this exact trap.
And Hume brilliantly illustrated this exact point. He wrote, "Did I show you the particular causes of each individual in a collection of 20 particles of matter, I should think it very unreasonable should you afterwards ask me what was the cause of the whole 20. Essentially, Hume is saying that proving the cause of individual parts within the universe absolutely doesn't automatically explain or necessitate a single grand cause for the entire universe itself.
To push his empirical objections even further, Philo offers some wildly creative but logically possible alternative explanations for apparent design. He toys with the Epicurean hypothesis, where chaotic matter just randomly orders itself over huge amounts of time. He even suggests the universe could have been spun from the abdomen of a gigantic spider. He's proving that order doesn't always require a human-like brain, sometimes it just requires abdomen power. Or, looking at all the flaws in the world, maybe it was created by an apprentice god as a failed experiment. Or perhaps a plurality of lesser gods built it together, kind of like a team of shipbuilders building a ship. Hume's point here isn't that a giant spider actually created the universe, but rather that apparent design does not guarantee the existence of the specific, perfect God of classical theism.
Section 3. Science enters the chat. Modern discoveries step onto the witness stand.
Now, the really amazing thing is how the philosophical groundwork laid by empiricists like Hume set the stage for radical discoveries that would turn our understanding of cause and effect completely upside down. Notice how empirical philosophy eventually paved the way for massive scientific milestones. In 1779, Hume publishes his Dialogues, arguing that maybe animals just adapt to survive. Fast forward to 1859, Charles Darwin publishes On the Origin of Species. Then, in 1929, Edwin Hubble observes the redshift of expanding galaxies. Let's look at why those last two dates are so incredibly monumental for this debate.
First,
Darwin's theory of evolution by natural selection provided exactly what Hume's character Philo was grasping for, a purely natural, mechanical explanation for apparent design. Darwin showed that incredibly complex traits, like a giraffe's long neck or the intricate human eye, could evolve gradually, simply because they offered a better chance for survival. This theory acted as a real-world, proven mechanism for Philo's arguments. It seriously challenged the need for a designer god by showing that nature could basically sort itself out through the survival of the fittest.
Furthermore, astrophysics comes along and offers an alternative causal explanation for the universe's absolute origin point. The Big Bang Theory suggests that roughly 13.7 billion years ago, an infinitely hot, infinitely dense, and infinitesimally small concentration of mass just exploded. And this is completely supported by Hubble's observation of redshift, which means distant galaxies are moving away from us, proving the universe is expanding. For a lot of folks, this theory seemingly handed Philo the ultimate victory. It provided an explanation for the existence and expansion of the universe without needing to reference a divine creator at all.
Which brings us to Section 4. Was the debate rigged? Stress testing Hume's intellectual integrity.
But taking an impartial referee stance for a second, we really have to step back and evaluate the strength of Philo's supposed victory here, because as compelling as Hume's philosophy, and the subsequent science might be, we have to ask a pretty tough question about how this whole original debate was framed. I mean, it's pretty easy to win an argument when you are the one writing both sides of the dialogue. Did Philo win because his philosophical arguments were completely bulletproof, or did he win because Hume stage-directed the entire conversation to make sure his stand-in character came out on top?
When you evaluate the text, it reveals that Hume might have actually stacked the deck by purposely weakening the opposing philosophical views. In the dialogues, Hume makes the character Demea a bit of a simpleton, rather than an intellectual equal on par with heavyweights like Thomas Aquinas or Augustine. Furthermore, Hume specifically critiques an anthropomorphic, or human-like God. But scholars like William Paley argue for a transcendent God, a being entirely beyond our human standards and understanding. Critics suggest it's intellectually dishonest to claim a win after defeating a weakened version of your opponent's argument.
Furthermore, as the scholar John Hick points out with his famous parable of the gardener, two people can look at the exact same plot of land and interpret the evidence entirely differently. One person sees a carefully tended garden, the other sees a random patch of weeds. The takeaway is that just because the world appears imperfect or chaotic to Hume, it doesn't definitively rule out a designer. It's all about how the individual interprets the exact same set of available evidence.
Finally, Section 5. Science versus philosophy. Which offers the better explanation?
When we compare these two massive frameworks for understanding reality, modern science has obviously become incredibly persuasive. It's even shown us that strict causality breaks down at the quantum level. Investigations in subatomic physics suggest that some quantum events, like electrons passing in and out of existence, can occur without any obvious cause whatsoever. And if quantum events can occur uncaused, well, that strikes right at the very heart of the cosmological argument, which relies heavily on the assumption that absolutely everything must have a cause. Because of this, hardline scientific stances argue that empirical progress will eventually solve the great problem of the universe's origin entirely. Take this quote from Peter Adkins, a professor of chemistry at Oxford. He claims that religion adopts an easy, adipose answer, God made it, while science, in contrast, is steadily and strenuously working toward a comprehensible explanation. For thinkers like Adkins, it's literally only a matter of time before science completely closes the book on the origins of the universe. Yet, here's the catch. Even with all our scientific reinforcements, a massive gap remains right at the very beginning of time. While the Big Bang Theory beautifully explains the expansion of the universe and the development of galaxies, scientists still cannot definitively explain the actual cause of the Big Bang itself. What caused that initial quantum fluctuation? For many, that huge unknown gap means God is still as good an explanation as anything else for the absolute first spark of existence.
Which leads us with this final, truly provocative question. Let's say science continues its strenuous march forward, and one day it manages to explain the exact mechanical how of the universe's birth. Will we still need philosophy and theology to explain the why? I mean, does a perfectly explained mechanism automatically rule out a mechanic? I really hope this explainer sparked your curiosity and gave you a structured new way to think about one of humanity's absolute greatest debates. Keep questioning everything, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.